You know what would be great? At just the very moment that Beckett Mariner appears to be gaining some degree of maturity, and yes, it's relative, why not introduce another young, idiotic, insubordinate, headstrong officer? Somebody that reminds her of the person she used to be. Again. Welcome to Critic's Log. Space. A continuous extension interval between planets, stars and other objects. These are the critiques of the critic McElvoy. His continuing mission to review strange new shows, to seek out new work and new bastardizations, to boldly note what no critic has noted before. Who mourns for Adonais? Well, I suppose I do. You remember the episode Who Mourns for Adonais? That was an original series episode. It was the one where Kirk met Zeus, the Greek god. Except it wasn't really him, was it? It was an alien who had assumed Zeus's form, presumably as a way of relating to human. I can't quite remember. It's been a very long time since I've seen it. And you've never seen it. Not if you're a Lower Decks fan. But here it was, sequelised in the new Lower Decks episode of Gods and Angles. See what they've done there? They substituted angels for angles, and that's because the A plot, if we can call it that, was about the Cerritos' attempt to bring together two warring races, one of orbs and one of cubes. Energy life forms that, though they're made of energy, for some reason had assumed those two rigid shapes. Bit odd, isn't it, if you're an energy-based life form? Anyway, that doesn't, the whole orbs cubes thing doesn't really concern us, because it's like everything else on the show, irrelevant toss, window dressing, right? Forget it, throw it out the window, doesn't matter. It's already disappearing from my memory, and by the time this video is over, I will have forgotten it completely. What did stick was the presence of the new character, Ensign Olly. Who's Ensign Olly? She's an insubordinate, young, headstrong, stick-it-to-the-man system, doesn't play by the rules, doesn't have any sense of timekeeping, has a problem with authority type. Sound familiar? But here's the twist. Ensign Olly is the granddaughter of Zeus, from Who Mourns for Adonais, and she has those powers to conjure up lightning bolts and channel energy and things like that. But she suppresses them because she wants to fit in, but not so much that she sticks by the rules and actually acts like a Starfleet officer. That would be real conformity, wouldn't it? If you did your fucking job, turned up for work every day, worked hard. Ensign Olly, I need this servo fixed by 08:30 hours. No problem, sir, I'm on it. That would be conformity, wouldn't it? But the character we meet is a disorganised shithouse, sort of, a free spirit. Just the sort of person that would never become a Starfleet officer. No one stops to put these characters to one side and ask them, why is it that though you hate authority and you hate being within a sort of, as you see it, stifling, suffocating, regimented hierarchy, why have you decided to join a military organisation? It's a weird thing to do, isn't it? It's a weird choice to make. If temperamentally you're a kind of hippy-dippy bohemian type, like, hey man, I go with the moon and the tides. I do whatever I want. I get up when I want. I go to bed when I... You wouldn't see the dude from The Big Lebowski in a Starfleet uniform, would you?
2 old sodas, Gary. Thanks. Good luck tomorrow. Yeah, thanks, man. Oh, sorry to hear about Donnie. Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes you eat the bar and sometimes, Hey, man.
We could never believe it, could we? Could never understand how the dude joined Starfleet. The dude were alive in the 24th century. He'd be bowling in some spaceport somewhere, enjoying the good life, being the dude. He wouldn't be saving the universe. So, Ensign Olly is quite an obnoxious creation for 2 reasons. Again, she's another sort of zany character in the Lower Decks universe. They're all zany, aren't they? All so terribly zany. But she combines 2 elements of this season, and indeed the late Lower Decks trend. One is to extend Star Trek lore, as we've discussed, to put the show's own little insignificant imprint on the canon, so they can say, hey, this wasn't just frivolous toss. Look what we did. We introduced a character that sequelises a TOS episode, so you've got to take us seriously. We're real Star Trek. Lower Decks. And the other is to, in some way, not apologise for Beckett Mariner. To double down, if you will. You see, I think that Mike McMahon and the writers of Lower Decks, if indeed one can call them writers, watch shows like this, maybe even this show. Because let's face it, this is the pick of the bunch. This is the cream that rises to the top, as it were. Why would you go anywhere else? And they watch people like me and they say, fuck him! Fuck him and his puritanical attitude to Star Trek and his love of the franchise and his reverence for the material and his constant campaign to not have it corrupted by teen fanfic. Fuck him! We're not going to apologise. We're not going to apologise for this character. We're not going to apologise for the show's witlessness. No. We're going to double down. We're going to show people like Dr. McAvoy that he can shove it up his space tubes. And so they do. And so, more than once, I think this is like the 3rd episode in 6, where Beckett Mariner, who's been promoted, remember, is no longer an ensign, actually notionally has some authority over real lower deckers, looks wistfully back and says, man, I miss being a complete fuck up. It happened when she met her alternate universe self. We got a little reminder of that through Boimler in this episode. You know, the one who had become a real, megalomaniac, but was deep down frustrated at not being able to cut loose anymore. And here was Ensign Olly, the kindred spirit, or kindred spaz, if you like. And she looked at Ensign Olly and she went, "I know what you're about. I know what you're about. You're like I was until about 5 minutes ago. You're a complete and total nightmare." And of course, given Ensign Olly's history of insubordination, where was she assigned to? The Cerritos. The ship where you send the fuck-ups. Because of course, that's what you do. Do you remember the introduction of Lieutenant Barclay in TNG? Of course you do.
Oh, say, Reg, how about sitting in on the mission briefing with my senior officers in the morning?
The briefing? Me?
I'd like your input.
What on?
The episode Hollow Pursuits. You remember it? Great episode. Dwight Schultz, however you pronounce his silly name, was introduced, wasn't he, as the sort of timid, shy, slightly malfunctioning Starfleet officer who had no social skills and who retreated to holodeck fantasies to give him a sense of confidence and empowerment. And he was a bit of a disaster, and his commanding officers kept transferring him on to different assignments because they couldn't quite get him to work.
I'm just not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
But nobody doubted that he had skill, or he had aptitude. He'd passed his Starfleet entrance exams. He'd become an officer. He'd risen to the rank of lieutenant. Not a terrible officer, but just one who couldn't quite get his shit together. But not insubordinate, not openly hostile to the concept of authority. Somebody who just felt so self-conscious and so shy that they couldn't fit in. Something that many of us are all too familiar with. How could we relate to Buckley? My God! Millions related to that character. And there's a scene, a pivotal scene, in which Picard says to LaForge,
It's easy to transfer a problem to someone else. Too easy.
Captain, it's not like I haven't tried.
Try harder, Geordie.
we're not just going to pass him on like a malfunctioning tricorder. We're going to work out what the problem is and we're going to fix it. That's Picard's instinct. You take an officer and you make them better. You improve them. You know, he's like a football manager trying to get the best out of his players. Okay, you don't work as a right back. Well, we'll try you in midfield. See how you get on. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know, if you're a football person, don't write in. I don't care. So that's the normal situation, and the reason that felt right is because in the TNG universe, in which Lower Decks is allegedly set, there is a professional standard which has to be adhered to. It's unthinkable that an officer who is openly hostile to authority and cannot get on would get too far in the organisation. Even Ensign Rowe, who, let's face it, was a bit of a head case, eventually had to settle into a professional rhythm in order to get on the Enterprise. Right? She couldn't be the hothead that Picard inherited for too long, because she'd lose her credibility as a character. Do you agree? I don't care if you agree or not. Those are the facts. So, that's the situation in Star Trek. Remember Star Trek? So what the fuck's going on here? Well, like I said, what's going on here is a new Mariner has been created in order to remind us how wonderful the old Mariner was, and to remind Mariner in universe how wonderful she is. She talks about, you want to fight the system like me. To which you want to reach through the screen, put your hands around her animated neck and say, "You are the system, bitch! Don't you get it? What's wrong with you? If you don't like being a Starfleet officer, bugger off!" There are millions of people used to aspire to such a thing. Used to dream about it. Wouldn't it be great to be in Starfleet? You remember when Star Trek was aspirational? You'd look into that utopian future and say, my God, how cool would it be to be on the Enterprise, to serve in the Federation, in Starfleet, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations. And here's some flippant gobby arsehole who apparently thinks it's a real chore. Yeah, that's what I want to see as a Star Trek fan. Well done, Mike McMahon. Well done, all you right. Give yourselves a fucking slow hand clap. Let's do anomalous readings. As I mentioned at the beginning of this thing, there was an A plot about orbs and cubes. How was it resolved? Well, one orb had sex with one cube. They had a relationship, had a child, which is neither an orb nor a cube. And in a very simplistic way, that solved racism. You can see Harlan Ellison in his grave going, fuck, why didn't I think of that? Very dangerous if you write Star Trek Lower Decks to include dialogue like, we're going to laugh about this later. Because if you're the audience, of course, you're not. But you're going to notice that line. Don't create little hostages to fortune like that, you know. Not in this show. There's another reference to Dixon Hill. How does Beckett Mariner know about Dixon Hill? Well, she knows about it because she's a Star Trek fan. An animated Star Trek fan. Not a Star Trek character. Do you see the difference? I do. Do you, Mike McMahon? There was a strange scene in which all the characters are perfectly round shadows. It's like the animators just couldn't be fucked. Where's the light source in this room? It's coming from above, I suppose. Well, would that make... what kind of shadow would that... just draw a round thing underneath all of them. A perfectly round shadow underneath all the characters. That'll do. Yes, that's a nitpick, but this is the nitpicking section of the fucking... Have you seen this segment? Crisp dialogue of the week. Nice going, fucko. It's great. Put it on a t-shirt. It's kind of pin-sharp dialogue that we associate with the franchise. At the end of Gods and Angles, Ensign Olly saved the day, sort of, almost accidentally, despite it being unbearable, and so she earned a place on the ship, and so she stays. So now we've got her to the end of the season. Presumably, in the final episode of the season, she and a group of other degenerates will take over from Mariner et al., and that will mean that the show, in terms of exploring the personal growth of its characters, will have gone nowhere at all. It was sort of defaulted back to the beginning. You know, Mariner will say, well, I guess I can't be a rebel forever, but that's okay, because there's somebody to take my place. Not, as happens in the real world, where you meet somebody who reminds you of yourself in your youth, and you say, what a twat. The things I could teach you. The mistakes I could stop you making. The wisdom I could impart. The elephant traps I see you creating for yourself, which I know you're going to succumb to. I could save you all of that, except that I'm a mean-spirited, sadistic, bitter middle-aged person who likes to see other people fail. So I'm not going to. Just going to let you go through it all like I did. So, until next time, I'm Dr. McElvoy. Thanks for watching, and, you know, always wear a condom. Goodbye.